And we are live. Welcome to another episode of Let's Rage Coogs, the unofficial post-game show of the University of Houston Athletics. Here we are joined. My name is Andy Yanez. You can follow me on Twitter at ayanez_5. I'm joined by Dayon Dunlap. Dayon, I'll let you introduce yourself in a little bit. Go ahead. Actually, right now, introduce yourself.
Hey man, I'm Dayon Dunlap. As you can see below that's my Twitter handle. Follow me on Twitter. Color commentator for the women's basketball team. All their home games broadcasting on ESPN Plus. Do high school football and basketball. But right now, it's all about the Cougs, man. Let's talk Cougs. They just came off a dominating win in the semifinal in the conference tournament.
For sure. The University of Houston men's basketball team advances once again to the American Athletic Conference championship game. They will play the winner of number 2 seed and 3 seeds SMU and Memphis, who are I believe they just tipped off momentarily. They will play the winner of them. But right now we'll focus on Houston, who in the semifinals, they defeated Tulane for the third time this season. Final score was 86-66 in favor of Houston. And we've talked about it all season long in terms of Houston has been able to do it with an 8-man rotation. They've lost Marcus Sasser. They lost Tremont Mark. Well, today against Tulane, it happened again, this time against who Kelvin Sampson has called their best player in Fabian White Jr. this season. He goes out. He only plays 3 minutes. Kelvin Sampson talked about it in the post-game Zoom availability where shoot around, he was fine. Kelvin Sampson comes up to Kelvin Sampson talking about how Fabian White Jr.'s back had tightened up on him, and he starts doing work. The head athletic trainer for the University of Houston men's basketball team, John Houston, told Kelvin Sampson that it wasn't letting up. It was still tightened. Of course, he said Fabian White was going to try to go. They went with him. He started, and he said that the first play they went to Fabian White to see how he would do, and he missed it by a mile. I believe it was the phrase by a few feet is what Kelvin Sampson said post game. Yeah. That's when you knew that he wasn't going to be able to go in this game, and immediately, I mean, Tulane jumps off to that 9-2 start. Kelvin Sampson called a timeout. He pulls Fabian White Jr., and then that's it for him for the rest of the game. He only ends up playing 3 minutes total. But, of course, in comes in J'Wan Roberts, who he was an X factor in this game. We talked about it literally yesterday in our post-game show. They needed bench production with J'Wan Roberts. All he did was go in and get a double-double, 10 points, 13 rebounds. And what was that? That was the story of the game right there. The battle of the boards. Houston completely dominated, not only in rebounds in total, but offensive rebounds. They had a 17-3 edge over Tulane, which translated into a 30-0 second chance point advantage, which is just absurd. Dayon, what were your main takeaways from this game? And we'll bring in Aqib shortly.
Man, just culture. I know you hear it all the time. Culture. And really just J'Wan coming in and being that presence inside. You mentioned 13 rebounds, but 5 offensive rebounds. And he kind of helped set the tone early. And then Kyler got going. And we talked about it a lot yesterday. And Aqib actually mentioned that when Kyler's making shots, we can blow teams out. And he was making shots, and it was a blowout. But I think it was more than that, more the team effort, more defense, and rebounding. I mean, Kyler, not only was he making shots, he just affects the game in so many ways. Coach Sampson just said on the post game on how Kyler's the best defensive player on the best defensive team. He said he would have voted him defensive player of the year in the conference, but he's just a warrior. He's just tough. From Coach Sampson's words, 20 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. I mean, that's an all-around game. And even when his shot isn't falling, he still puts up those assists and those rebounds numbers. And so, I mean, it was a good game overall, and like Coach Sim said, it was over. It was past due, and I think it was overdue, man. It was about time that he started getting shots to fall in, and like he said he talked to Faye before the game, and so he came in locked in, knowing that he had to produce even more. That Faye wasn't really going to be able to play, and so this takes me back when Marcus then went out. Kyler immediately stepped up, and so I think now just him sustaining this high level of play. We know he can bring it on the defensive end, assisting and rebounding, but is maintaining that high offensive level of play because Houston needs it.
Okay, what were your main takeaways from Houston throttling of Tulane in the American Athletic Conference Semifinals?
Yeah, that was an impressive game, and just like we said on the last show, when we're hitting our shots, we could be blowing out teams, and that's what I'd like to see. Moving forward, obviously, if we can get Kyler Edwards going. He's always getting his shots and he's always making the right plays. He's never, and today, like for example, he had 8 assists, 0 turnovers, and on top of that, he led us in scoring as well, 20 points. I think he had 6 for 12 from 3. So I mean, if he's doing that on a consistent basis, like we're one of the toughest teams to beat in the country, and we still are one of the toughest teams to beat in the country, even when we're not, playing our best or not shooting well. But if you could see the second chance opportunities, I think it ended up being 29 points to 0, which I'm 30 to 0. So I'm flabbergasted. I don't know how to describe that. Like, that's just a beat down. You could see from the box score, we won by 20, but like to be 30-0 on second chance points is like, it's almost unheard of.
Yeah, and for sure. And let's get right into it. We mentioned bench production. We talked about Jaywan Roberts' impact. Dayon Dunlap, I'll let you go first. What did you see from him? He got to speak to reporters after the game. He talked about his mindset. It's just going in there, play hard, and get as many rebounds as he possibly can. And that's exactly what he did today against Tulane.
Yeah, I mean, he always does that, grabs the boards. But it was good to see him finish around the rim. And that was good to see him finishing around the rim and being aggressive. I think it's one thing, but like he said, he just plays within his role. He's a star within his role, and that's what great role players do. And he always grabs rebound. With Fabian being out, he had to add a little bit more, in which he did that, which just finishing around the rim, catching and being aggressive, looking to score. And so I was very impressive with him on the floor, and it's really just kind of looking forward to the future when Fabian's gone. I know the recruiting class we got coming in, and Jaywan, I think it's not going to be a drop-off. I think you're only going to see him continue to develop just like Fabian developed. So I was very, very impressed with his game.
But on that note, what did you see from Jaywan Roberts? What did you see from some of the other players, not just Kyler Edwards, who, like you said, Kelvin Sampson said he was due for one of these shooting games. He kind of broke the dam, and he hit 6 3-pointers. He shot 50% from 3, which is that's an absurd percentage, especially if you factor in with effective field goal percentage and all that stuff. But Tajay Moore, he had a good performance, and really he had a quiet 17 points. He also dished it out. He had 7 assists, but obviously, of course, Josh Carlton, he had another big game. He had 16 points, just top down and bottom. It seemed like this was a much more team win. And once again, I like to remind everyone, this was basically a 7-man rotation that Houston wrote out there for the entire game. They were able to honestly dominate Tulane after their initial 9-2 start to the game.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, Jaywan Roberts played amazing. And I think Chris on the last show made a point to say he's been finishing a lot better at the rim. Over the course of the season, he had missed kind of some bunnies, point blank, and now he's hitting those, and that makes him really dangerous. And we saw a couple of times where he even was able to get post moves, and I think today he had a double-double, which is amazing. He definitely embodied the next man up mentality. So he was one of I would say Kyler Edwards was our best player today, rather, but I mean, Jaywan Roberts was huge on the glass, and he also helped us, and when we were kind of not getting our buckets, he kind of made it a point to, go for those second chance opportunities and clean up the glass. So I liked what I saw from him. I liked what I saw from Tajay. Like I said last show, this man, I don't see him miss many mid-range jump shots. Like I wish we had like the actual analytics on that,
Right.
But I think in college stats it's kind of hard to find those. But like I don't see him miss a ton, of mid-range jump shots. And Josh Carlton was, Josh Carlton. So I think, and I think aside from Reggie Chaney, everyone stayed out of foul trouble. That was a huge thing for me. So
yeah, that was another key factor there. For kind of a question for the panel, Kyler Edwards, after the game, he told ESPN, Houston's still playing with a chip on their shoulder, and he said, they asked him how the team was able to, play as well as they did after Fabian White didn't win out of the game, and he talked about how it's been what they've done the entire year. He mentioned the next man up mentality, but then what really caught my eye was what he said towards the end, where they still have a chip on their shoulder because no one believes in them to make a legit push. What do you guys think about that comment that Edwards had to say to ESPN after the game?
I mean, I loved it. I think that starts from top. I think that's the message Coach Sampson is preaching, and I think it breathes on to the players. So it was good to hear him say that, and really, and I believe he can make a run. I mean, they got Houston projected was a 4 or 5 seed, which that's not bad. But if the full team was there, probably be a 1-2 seed, and probably could have the same record, if not even better. So why not have at least around that same seed? And so, I mean, the confidence is high. I was I wasn't surprised, but it was good to hear him actually come out and say it.
Yeah, I was able to catch that as well, and it's crazy to. Sorry to cut you off, Andy, but yeah, it's
No,
crazy to see from a guy like Kyler Edwards to mention that next man up mentality when he's like one of our go-to guys for UH. So it speaks a lot about our culture. Like even if the way he plays, especially, he's looking to make the right plays, and he doesn't seem to be like a guy that needs to be ball dominant. Like maybe a Quentin Grimes, but at the same time, like I love his game, like what he brings defensively on the rebounds, his passing. He doesn't make very many mistakes, and his veteran presence, being there for the team has helped us tremendously.
I wanted to add something that Keith said about Tajay because I agree. He doesn't miss many mid-range shots. And then I know he shot 7 threes, but none of them were forced threes. They were all in rhythm in the offense. And then once he didn't take any more, like once he gets inside, whether it's mid-range, all the way in the paint, he's like so explosive and just so athletic. It looks like it's almost automatic, man. And I didn't even realize he had 7 assists until you mentioned it, and I went back and looked. And so he is a complete player. Just imagine him coming off the bench and the team that we would have had. But Tajay, another big game. I just wanted to add that in for sure.
And I put the comment on there, a YouTube comment from SB. He asked, "Does Kelvin sit Fabian White Jr. tomorrow for the tournament?" And Dayon, we were both in the post-game availability, and Kelvin, honestly, he kind of hinted at it. He talked about how he had spoken with Fabian White after the game. He said that his back was still bothering him, and even he made an interesting comment where, yes, tomorrow's game will be the American Athletic Conference Championship. They'll play either SMU or Memphis. And obviously the conference tournament, the conference title has its own prestige, its own, it'll be nice to win it. But obviously, of course, with this team, the NCAA tournament is right around the corner. And his comment was, it might not be a decision they even have to make, in Kelvin Sampson's words, just because of how it's still bothering Fabian White. And what Kelvin said is that honestly, when it comes to seeding in terms of the NCAA tournament, they might already be set. Dayon, you mentioned it. Most projections out there, they have them as a 5 seed. That it seems like they might be on the bubble of being able to crack into the top, into a 4 seed, depending on if however some of the other teams ahead of them crack up. And obviously, of course, I would imagine the outcome of tomorrow's championship game. But at the end of the day, do you guys feel like there's a big difference into whether Houston is a 4 or 5 seed, and should they be more cautious in terms of Fabian White? It certainly seems like Kelvin was leading that direction. Dayon, either you can go.
Yeah, I was gonna let you have it. I thought you were. I think he definitely should rest Fabian, especially because we got bigger fish to fry. Well, Houston has bigger fish to fry. Looking down the line, and you want Fabian to be as healthy as possible. And like you just said, Coach Simpson said in the after the game that he might not even have to make that decision. If Fabian isn't as well as he's feeling, as well as he needs to be to play, then he won't play. And so, but if Houston wins without Fabian, against whoever, SMU or Memphis in that championship game, I think it has to boost him at least maybe to the 4 or 5 seed. But either way, I don't really think it matters much because Houston is who they are. And so whether they win tomorrow or he rests and plays tomorrow, I think just looking at the big picture, it's more important having a healthy Fabian going down the line.
Yeah, to answer your question, Andy, it is important to win the tournament in a sense if we're looking at implications as far as seeding goes with the 4 and 5 seed. I think Joe Lenardi has us literally like number on 1 on the 5th seed.
Yeah.
So like for sure, I think a win in the AAC tournament tomorrow. That gets us into a 4 seed. A lot of people have us as a 5 seed right now, and but then if we're going off of what Dayon said, I think it's also at the same time it's kind of important to like rest Fabian, because I mean Fabian's obviously a big part of our team, and we need him tomorrow. But at the same time, like that usually back stiffness and back tightness, it doesn't just go away in one day. And like we see guys like Tracy McGrady, like who's suffered throughout his whole career from probably not rehabbing or not resting enough. So we definitely don't want that for Fabian. And like I definitely see him as more of an important leader that we need in the NCAA tournament. I mean, for us, as far as seeding, yes, maybe we need him to like for tomorrow's game. But at the same time, I'm on the same side as Dayon. Like I'd rather him rest than just play poorly with a back injury.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that we talked about yesterday was the depth and getting bench production. And with Fabian out, they got bench production today with J1. So if Fabian's out, we'll just consider him a starter. But today he came off the bench in his normal role, 10 points. But although he played more minutes, we talked about his points, but also Ramon Walker, he gave you 11.6 rebounds. Rage also gave you 5 points. So that bench production also is going to be key, especially in the championship game. They have to continue to get bench production, whether it's from Ramon or Reggie. I think that's very important. And that was key today, something we talked about in yesterday's show.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
No, I was going to segue into a different point. So if you're going to mention something, I'll let you get the word in.
Yeah, that the bench production is huge because like if you look at the box scores the last 4 or 5 couple of games, I think we're very rarely do we even hit double digits in bench points, and that's like that hurts us a lot not being able to get that when we do rest our guys because we're so limited on an 8-man rotation.
Yeah, and I will say this in terms of rest. Obviously last week Houston went on that stretch where they played 4 games in the span of 8 days, and concluding with the 4th game in Memphis on Sunday. Now they were able to get a couple of days rest in between the week before the start of the NCAA, the American Athletic Conference tournament. But this is now going to be the 3rd game in 3 straight days. If you go back 2 weeks, they're going to go a stretch where they have played 7 games in 15 days. So certainly they're going to have fatigue is going to play a big factor going into it. And I agree with what both of you have said. And when we're seeing along some of our viewers in the comments where it seems like they want to be more cautious, especially like Aqib, you mentioned with back, any type of back injury is so tricky because it's not it's not like a rolled ankle where, ice it, you can, treat it and maybe it'll be painful, but it won't limit you in terms of mobility. Like there's ways to move around it. With a back, it affects so much of your movement. It affects a whole bunch of different avenues that depending on how serious it is. So I agree, it should probably be a more cautious approach with the NCAA tournament right around the corner. That being said, being able to tout that you have won the American Athletic Conference postseason tournament for the 2nd straight year, and as you see in the ticker, this is now the 4th straight year that the University of Houston has qualified for the American Athletic Conference championship game. Obviously, of course, there was no tournament in the 2020 season due to COVID, but I want to digress and talk more about just the domination that we saw from Houston on the glass. You mentioned it, especially offensive rebound. It was an absurd 17 to 3 advantage, but overall in terms of rebounding, they out rebounded Tulane 43 to 21. And obviously, of course, Dayon, you mentioned it, that plays to Houston's culture. That's their favorite word. It's not only the next man out mentality, but it's their toughness. It's their ability to crash the glass. And Kelvin Sampson, in his post-game availability, talked about Kyler Edwards' shooting, how something he'd like to reiterate to him was, don't worry about missing the first shot, because the way Houston plays, they're going to go and fight and try to get those rebounds. And that's something that they were able to dominate Tulane in this game. What did you guys see in that aspect? Dayon, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, Coach Sampson often says sometimes our best shot is a missed shot, and that was true today. They got over 50% of their missed shots today, and that's huge. And that translates, like, your shots aren't always going to fall, but defense and rebounding translates. We saw that in a tournament last year, and you see that from game to game. rebounding and defense can help keep you in the game, but you got to make shots to actually win a game. And so it was a sight to see. Everyone came in and contributed well, and just more props to Coach Sampson. I mean, he just empowers his players. I think the players among themselves knew that Fabian wasn't 100%, and so knowing that next man up and knowing that you're going to get the call, Coach Sampson's going to believe in you. That only, in my opinion, empowers you even more to play hard, to go get them offensive rebounds, and doing the things that you practice, that they practice day in and day out. So that was a sight to see. And shots, they were falling today for the most part, but when they aren't falling and you can go get those offensive rebounds and also defensive rebounds, because you don't want to give up second chance points on the defensive end either. And so rebounding is definitely key, and they definitely dominated the board. The numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah, you can't when it comes to like looking at basketball on the offensive end, you can only control so much when it comes to shot making. Like, yeah, there's catching and shooting in rhythm, not taking bad shots, but when you are taking good shots, sometimes they just don't fall your way, unless you're like Steph Curry, you're not gonna hit. I mean, even he's struggling, on his standards right now.
He's had his slumps.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't control your shot making always. So the only thing you can control is playing defense and rebounding, and that's what UH does best in the country. They're probably, I think, in rebound. I don't know what the rebound margin is right now, but I'm sure they're top 10 in the country right now. And I think also there's certain defensive metrics, they're top 5 in the country as well. But yeah, those are the things you can't control, and that's part of our culture.
Yeah, for sure. And I'll end up, I'll pull that up in a second. But on that note, we will joining us on the show, Chris Gardner of the Houston Round Ball Review. This would be a good time to plug in. This would be a good time to have a sponsored segment. Chris Gardner joining us via the X name company hotline or whatever. We will come up with it, but just had to plug that in there. Chris, thank you for joining us on the show. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Well put, young man. You be like Ernie Johnson did back in the day about your sponsor name here. We need that. Yeah, your plug here, your company right here. That works for me. I'm doing great, and hopefully we do get sponsors for this. I think yesterday was a big success, and hopefully we'll do more of these in the future. That's the plan for these Rage Coogs to go forward for other sports too, for UH athletics. So, but yep, Cougs shot almost 50% and still had a 30-0 advantage in second chance points. That is insane, man. That is insane. Yeah. And that's why they had the big win. So I was wrong yesterday. I said I chose Tazi Moore as more important than Kyle Edwards. Well, Kyle Edwards probably saw the show and said, I'm going to show Chris and the guys on Let's Rage Coogs that I'm more important to the team. And he was great today. Made 6 threes, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. He did a little bit of everything, only 1 turnover. He was fantastic. So kudos to him for bouncing back.
Hey, we laugh. Honestly, it might be true. He mentioned it and to ESPN where he said the teams read what other teams would have other people have said about Houston. So you never know who's watching. But on that note, Chris, let's talk a little bit more of the Tulane perspective that we haven't really gotten into. But one of the players that we mentioned before we kind of signed off yesterday was Kevin Cross and how potentially he could cause a bit of a matchup problem for Houston and especially specifically Josh Carlton. I mean, you look at the stat sheet, he had a decent game, 13 points, 5 rebounds, 7 assists. But when you look at the game overall, it never really seemed after that initial burst that Tulane had to start the game. It seemed like Houston had control of that game from that point forward, especially once they answered with an 11-0 run. And honestly, they never relinquished the lead after that. Just what did you see from Tulane from the Greenway perspective?
They missed their best player, Mr. Cook. He was without him. He's one of their key scorers. They don't have enough weapons to combat with Houston's defense. Houston makes you spread out your offense and get points from multiple positions. And if you don't have enough guys to do that, you're going to struggle. And Tulane struggled. They didn't make threes very well for most of the second half. And then the Cougs defense we could tell that the Cougs do not play zone defense a lot. because they seemed clueless in where to be, what spots to be a few times in the second half. So that was an issue. But, Tulane just didn't have enough bullets in the gun to compete against a team that was so hot offensively and on the glass like Houston was today.
Yeah, I think as B comments, as you see on the screen, is right. I mean, really kind of had no chance without Cook. And like Chris just said, I mean, he's second in the conference in scoring, averaging 18 points per game. And that's a lot. He's a lot like how Marcus was for Houston in the sense that he can create his own shot. And so, I mean, that's hard to replace. But Forbes and Cross played well. I forgot, I think the guy that came off the bench that had a good game, Coach Sampson, complimented him as well. I think they said he was a sophomore. And Tulane, man, Coach Hunter, they have a good team, a young team. I think they're going to be really good in the American Conference, especially next season. If they're able to retain their core players, because you know how the transfer portal is and the different things like that. If they can retain their core, I think they can be really good.
I think Coach Hunter said, Dayon, he mentioned they have, 2 sophomores and 3 freshmen in their main core. So that's a promising future for the program. And he did joke with, and this is how the conference has evolved, because when it first started, obviously UConn won the championship, but Cincinnati was the best team in the conference. Houston is now the best team in the conference. Coach Hunter said, we've beaten everybody else in the conference except Houston. So they are the flagship. We're trying to be like them and beat them. And he joked right at the opening of his post-game comment. He's like, well, if we can't beat y'all, Coach Sampson, can y'all go ahead and leave the Big 12 now?
Yeah, I caught that as well. Interesting. Real quickly before we move forward, a bit of a score update in the other semifinals game in the American Athletic Conference tournament. Memphis leads SMU 20-13 with about 7:43 left in the first half. So it's the Tigers with the advantage, just over halfway into the first half in that game. Chris, when it comes to, and we mentioned it yesterday in terms of bench production, obviously, of course, the story of this game was Fabian White, who only played 3 minutes. Calvin Sampson talked about how, they realized he had back stiffness problems after shoot around. And he said that the first play of the game was drawn up to see if Fabian White was good to go. And after his first shot, Kelvin said that he realized that he was not going to be able to go. And that first player that went into the game for Fabian White was Jaywan Roberts. And right off the gate, I mean, obviously he finished with a double-double for the game, but he had a big impact against Tulane. A couple questions. What does it say that it was Jaywan Roberts was the first player off the bench and not necessarily any other big? It could have possibly been Reggie Chaney, but also the impact that Roberts did have in the production that was given to him, the opportunity that was given to him.
He once again played up to his ability. He's got the potential to first get the rebounds. But we touched on it yesterday. He scored a little bit today. So he has that in his game. He said a while ago that his confidence never wavered. We could see it wavered. We could see by his action on the floor that he was struggling mentally. He didn't get rebounds. He wasn't hustling. He was missing layups. So he's human. It's okay to say it. We're not going to be mad at you we see you struggling. If your confidence wavered, that's all right. He's bounced back. He's playing better now. And he stepped up with Fabian, only playing 2 minutes today. And I think, I'll say it. I don't think Fabian should play tomorrow. I don't care if it's Memphis or SMU. If Fabian's back is bothering him, and Coach Sampson, he touched on it. He said Fabian's back may make the answer very simple. His back may not allow him to play tomorrow, so he won't even be a question. So, but yeah, if Fabian's not close to 100%, why even risk it?
Yeah, we touched on that a little bit, Chris, right before you joined, and we all agree with you. If he shouldn't play through it or force anything, especially because I think with the first round of the NCAA tournament, if you don't count the play-in games,
The first foreign.
It's I think Thursday is when the first round would start, right?
Good start on Thursday for them. Yep.
Yeah. So, today's Saturday. I mean, that gives you 4 or 5 days rest, unless he's practicing. But I think I agree with your sentiment, Chris. Like, I think I wouldn't play him tomorrow if it's bothering him that much.
And I'm going to say it, and I could be wrong. Okay, I'm not there. It seemed kind of strange to me to see Jamal Sheard wearing a long sleeve shirt and then having a towel over his head and sitting on the bench. I wonder if he's under the weather, if he's fighting something himself. And if he is, then he shouldn't play tomorrow. You know, Houston's in the tournament. Okay. If they're not healthy, they have a championship and, they got the regular season title. But if they're not healthy, and I'm not saying that they can't win tomorrow without Fabian and with Jamal being sick or whatever, because they're going to try to win because that's who they are. But if they don't, they're still going to tournament, regardless. It's all good.
Yep, I agree 100%. I did notice that too. I did find that a bit odd. I hope he is all right, but I mean, I echo those same words. If neither one of them are 100%, just rest him. I mean, especially Fabian, because the back, and as a big guy, whether you guard or don't matter, but as a back, that's not, like you said, it's not an ankle or something that you ice up or stretch out. I mean, it needs rest. So, I mean, I hope he's feeling his best. My prayers and everything is going out to Fabian because he worked so hard to get to this point and have the season that he's had and is having. I hope he's able to continue and just play in the tournament just for his sake, not even for me as a fan or anything, just for the work that he put in.
Yeah, for sure. And when you look at kind of the numbers wise, he had a quiet game after the big impact where he had last night against yesterday in their first round against Cincinnati, where it was clear that he was one of the two key players that kind of kept Houston in the game while Cincinnati was on that run. Only had 5 points. He did hit a big three early in the second half, but 6 assists, 2 turnovers. It seemed like his impact was very much reduced from what it was just 24 hours ago. So that could be something to monitor. And he only played 30 minutes now, albeit it was for the most part a game Houston had in control, certainly into the second half. But when it comes to minutes wise, it has been this entire stretch, certainly since conference play has started. That's certainly a low end for Shed, and when it hasn't been that he's been in foul trouble. So that might be something to keep an eye on. That being said, they already basically ran a 7-man rotation against Tulane. Could you see them going with a 6-man rotation in the championship, or in that point, if Shed doesn't play, Fabian White doesn't play, would you see it more of a, we got to give Robbie Armbruster more minutes. We got to give, heck, I mean, he's pretty much the only player if you count also Ryan Elvin, but Javier Francis.
Pull up Cole's comment, Andy. Whoever plays tomorrow for Houston, they're going to try to win the championship. They're going to try to win tomorrow. But I don't want anybody to play who's sick, anybody to play who's injured. Winning tomorrow, in the grand scheme of things, means squat, as opposed to winning in the NCAA tournament. They're going to try to win tomorrow if it's Robbie Armbruster, Ramon Walker, and Javier Francis and Ryan Elvin starting the game. They're going to try to win. But, coach is going to play the guys. He's going to play Taze Moore. He's going to play his starters. He's going to play those guys, give him a chance to win. But if Jamal Sheard is sick, he's not going to play. Coach Sampson's not going to risk Jamal's health just to win a conference tournament championship when they don't need to win it. So we're not talking about playing guys just for winning this conference championship. For what? They don't need to win tomorrow to get to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, no one. I agree with you, Chris. Whenever we look at, fans in general, we remember what kind the type of banners we hang up, and it's usually we don't remember who won the AAC tournament last year. Like, I mean, I think UH won last year, obviously, right? But at the same time, like we think about a Final Four run or a Sweet 16 run. Those to me are more important. AAC tournament is very important as well, but in the grand scheme of things, hanging up a banner that says like Sweet 16 or Final Four is more important to me.
And let me say this: if Fabian can't play and Jamal, like I said, Jamal's going to have to be really sick to not play. But I would give Javier Francis more minutes. He's got a bright future. And give Robbie more minutes. Ramon Walker more minutes. If they get more minutes Sunday, they might be needed in the NCAA tournament for a 5-minute spell if somebody gets in foul trouble. That's more important than winning a conference championship to me. Clearly, the players go out to win every game that they can. But the guys who won championship last year, been there, done that. If they're sick and injured and can't go tomorrow, that's different. If they cannot play tomorrow, they're not going to play. I don't care if that ends up making it a 5-man team. They're not going to risk health of any of these kids just to win a, in the grand scheme of things, meaningless conference championship, because they already have a spot in the NCAA tournament locked up. Period.
And a high seeding at that, 4 or 5 seed is great,
Yeah, they're already locked up. And the game's at 2:15. It'll end around 4:15, 4:30. The committee pretty much has already locked in Houston's seed already. Trust me. Okay, I've been in the room for those. That's already done. So it's good for the young men to win a championship tomorrow. But if they're not healthy and if they're sick, why play?
And on that note, a quick update on SMU and Memphis. SMU has rallied back. It's a 2-point game with 3:38 left in the first half. Memphis still with the advantage, 26-24. So that one's going to be a good game going down to the wire. A player we haven't talked much about in this post-game show in terms of Houston and Tulane is Josh Carlton. Like you mentioned, again, another player that he got his numbers. He had 16 points. He had 6 rebounds. He was a very good presence in the paint, especially he had a couple of shots just cleaning up the glass and having putbacks. What did you guys see from Josh Carlton in this outing, especially after in Cincinnati, where he was not able to get on the floor, certainly in the first half due to foul trouble, turns around and doesn't commit a single foul against Tulane. So he learned a little there. It probably has a lot to do with the different referee crew that they had. But what did you guys see from Josh Carlton in this game?
I think he played more. I'll go first here, I guess.
Go ahead.
I think he played more than he should have. I mean, obviously he had a good game, 16 points, like you mentioned. I think if Reggie Chaney doesn't foul out or doesn't get in foul trouble, it doesn't commit that dumb technical foul, I think we get to rest Josh Carlton more. And he's definitely if we're looking at AAC Conference Championship tomorrow, Josh Carlton's someone you got to have on the floor as much as you can to dominate on the glass and play bully ball, obviously. So he played a great game. It's just I feel like we could have rested him a little bit more today if Reggie Chaney didn't get in foul trouble.
I was very impressed with Josh's defense on Cross. Cross is obviously quicker, a little more athletic player. So I was really impressed on how he was able to guard Cross and not really just get beat off the dribble. I think in the paint, he played big. He was dominant. He caught everything and finished. And so he was his normal self inside. Just looking forward to tomorrow. I think he has to be looking in shops to play who Coach Sampson says the best player in the conference, in Jalen Duran. He said he's a lottery pick. He's an NBA player for sure. And he said he's just a monster. And so for Josh, I'm sure he has hopes and aspiration to play at the next level going against a surefire lottery pick. I mean, you got to be ready to compete. And I know we all are agreeing that Houston should have the smart decision as far as players' health and stuff like that. But like Chris just said, when their players are on the floor, they're going to compete. They're going to compete to win. But Coach Sampson is going to make the smart decision as far as players health-wise. But on the floor competing, I want to see Josh compete against Jalen Duran. That's a matchup that I'm going to be watching. Well, whoever wins, they're playing right now. I forgot. SMU. Memphis is up 2 right now.
And let me say this before we put this commenter in timeout.
Ooh,
because
as it come out immediately.
No, put it up there. Then we're gonna put him in timeout. Because if you can't do it, I'll do it. But you should have the ability to do it in your controls, Andy. But Wayne, thank you for tuning in to our show. Thank you for giving us some time with your clicking on the commercials. So appreciate that. But if you're going to come on here and bash the Cougars, what does it say about your team then getting those wins in. Because if you're beating a team that sucks, what does it say about you? Okay. So, I mean, Houston 28-5, third in the net. So they're doing something right. You know, it's not their fault Oregon didn't do what we thought they would do this season. It's not their fault Virginia did not hold up their end of the bargain. It's not their fault that Oklahoma State got banned from a tournament and still had a successful season despite the punishment. So, you know, haters going to hate. 28-5. And it's interesting to me how Memphis beat Houston twice, but Memphis has lost to SMU twice. So what does that say about y'all? Okay, so fans will be fans and they'll pick and choose what they want to say and do all this other kind of stuff. Houston's going to be in the tournament. Period. Houston was in the Final Four last year. Period. Houston lost 2 of its top 3 guards, and it's still 28-5. Period. So I'll take that all day, every day. You can be a fan. You can go to the Memphis boards and talk about that and cry about your team only being up 2 points over SMU right now. Thank you for your time. Peace.
I did not know that you could put people in timeout. That's good to know. But on that note, I want to segue to this comment, and it's something that I agree with. And Dan, I know you want to touch on this, but Ramon Walker's form, it's a smooth. It's one motion with the release. He has a good motion. But Dan, I know you want to talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah, and the post game, Coach Sampson, just like Kyler, he said the team and the players were more happy that both of them finally got shots to fall. I think it's important, to Chris's point, if those players like Ramon, who probably could play more extended minutes tomorrow, I think it will be important for him, especially going forward, because any foul trouble, his number could be called. And he definitely has a good shooting motion. It's good to see him drive the basketball, look to score. And so, I mean, I've been high on him throughout the entire season because I've seen him play in high school. I know his ability when he's healthy and he's fully confident. And he's only a freshman. I remember Tremont as a freshman, and I know what he can do when he comes back with more opportunity. And so, Ramon, I love to see him, the way he's playing, being more aggressive, look like he's a little bit more healthy, athletic, big guard. Dad played in the NFL, so he has a good athletic bloodline. So that was a good comment by SB.
And Chris, also Guy V. Lewis Award winner.
Correct. Thank you, sir. Very, very true. He was the 2021 winner of the Guy V. Lewis Award that goes to the top boys high school player in Greater Houston. Greater Houston, that's counties that are adjacent to Harris County. That's why you have not seen Terrence Arsenault's name in the list of finalists, because he's in Beaumont, and Beaumont is not in the county adjacent to Harris County. So just relax on Cougar fans about that. But yes, Mr. Yanez, you can put folks in timeout and you can block them also if they become too difficult.
I saw that. But by the way, quick side note, speaking of Terrence Arsenault, it's interesting you guys mentioned him. It seems that, he just led Beaumont United to win the 5A state championship in the state of Texas and had a double-double in doing so, 14 points, 10 rebounds. I just saw Kellen Sampson.
So they won again, so that's back-to-back?
Yes, sir. That's back-to-back. And, Kellen Sampson, tweeting about it. I'll see if I can put that in the ticker. But on a side note, that's going into next season. They have a lot of potential going into what could be the final year in the American Athletic Conference. Let's wrap up a little bit more about this game, and maybe we could potentially talk some of Mike Oresco's comments that he had during his availability, if you'd like. But anyways, to put a bow on this game, again, and not to sound like a broken record, but for those of you guys just tuning in, Fabian White Jr. gets out early with back problems. Back stiffness is what the Cougars are kind of describing it, back tightness, I should say. So essentially they go with a 7-man rotation for much of the game. Really the player of the game was Kyler Edwards, finished with 20 points, had 6 of 12 shooting from 3. Tajay Moore had 17. Josh Carlton had 16. And obviously, of course, Jaywan Roberts, he put in 10 and 13 rebounds. Like we just finished talking about Ramon Walker, he also had 11 and he hit 3 threes of his own. So really a strength in numbers type of win for the University of Houston Cougars. When you look at that phrase, that's a common phrase that really the Golden State Warriors made famous during their runs. But you look at Houston, what they were able to do with a 7-man rotation, they put up 86 points on the board. A lot of those second chance opportunities, 30 of them on second chance opportunities. But Chris, when it comes to the favorite phrase that Houston likes to use when it comes to these type of wins, a culture win. They gutted it out. The next man up mentality is what Kyler Edwards said after the game. He told ESPN. What did you? Was there anything that stood out? Obviously, of course, the rebounding does, but anything that you could see that really makes this team a problem? That I mean, to take the SMU Tim Jankovich's words, the SMU coach from when they played Houston a few weeks back, it is going to be a team that no one's going to want to see in the NCAA tournament, were his words. What about this game? Is there something that kind of stands out that kind of supports that, what Jankovic said?
The assists, 24 assists on 32 baskets.
Mm-hmm.
If Houston's doing that, if Houston's offense is clicking, they're going to be hard to beat because they don't have great shooters. You know, they have scorers, and Kyler Edwards has been a slump here and there, but you can see a difference when he's making his threes and his shot wasn't as flat from three. He had more of an arc on it for most of the threes he made today. That makes a big difference. When Houston is scoring 75 points and up, they're hard to beat. When the ball's moving, it wasn't sticky. It took good shots because, you know, the start of the game, they didn't have any ball movement. One and done shooting. Just one pass, I'm throwing up a shot. George Carlton took a face-up, 17-footer off of one pass. I'm sure Coach Hunter's like, hey, man, if you want to do that, go ahead. But ball movement. Houston, they are never known. They're not known for clicking and being great offensively. If their offense can be good to slightly better than good, man, to go with good defense and great rebounding, the ceiling is much higher for them in those cases.
Yep, you said it right, Chris. Because I said it before you got on. Defense and rebounding travels. No matter where gym you playing at, no matter if you playing on the street, it don't matter what gym, YMCA. If you rebounding, you playing hard defense, and you're gonna be able to be in the game. But when they making shots and they scoring the points, like you just said, the ball movement and things like that, they're going to be hard to beat. And so it was a good game, a good sighting. I think they came out and handled business like expected.
Yeah, what I noticed, and like what Chris mentioned with the ball movement, I noticed Kyle Edwards a couple of times he actually had a decently open shot, maybe in the mid-range or when he was driving, but then he passed it up for a better shot. And that also tells you how unselfish this team is from top to bottom. We don't just jack up threes, even if someone is hot, which, you know, some people might disagree with that philosophy, but I feel like we just try to get the best open look possible, and I think that's why we had a great game and we blew out Tulane today.
And see, I agree, and I think that is a telltale sign when the offense starts jacking up shots, when it's no ball movement, when it's just no shot, no passing, and one shot, the offense struggles. We can see them kind of when Houston begins to struggle like that. But when they got ball movement, you know, multiple passes in possession, get 3, 4, 5 passes, they get better shots, and the offense is clicking and it flows much better. So I think that was the key today. And if they can do that tomorrow or going forward, you know, they have it in them to have 20 assist games on 30 baskets. It's there. They got the talent to do that, whether it's going into post, the Josh Carlton, pick and roll Josh Carlton. We saw a little bit. We talked about it yesterday, guys, about Tazi Moore getting looks in the mid-range. He has some of that today. So they have enough variation in the game, in their players, in the skill set to do a little bit more things offensively and to have a variation and be more effective. So we'll see if that happens tomorrow.
I was going to transition over to clip from Kelvin Sampson, but I'll put this here for a teaser on the other side of the clip. Obviously, of course, Houston's going to play either Memphis or SMU, depending on the outcome of that game. But on that note, we have this clip from Kelvin Sampson. He talks a little bit more about that offense. He was asked about multiple players having 6 or more assists, and this is what he responded.
That ball movement do for you guys?
Yeah, I think that just starts from day one about us. We don't, shots, teams that have very few assists usually have bad shots. Shot selection has a lot to do with it. We scored 32 baskets today and we had 24 assists. We've done that a lot. We have a lot of 30 baskets, 22, 24 assist nights. We do that a lot. That's a credit to our players. They buy in. Coaches can have game plans and establish things, but we play team basketball at Houston. We have good teams. We're not the best team in the country. A lot of teams better than us, but we don't. That's not our deal. We just try to be the best we can be. Some nights it's going to be pretty good, but there's never going to be a night we don't give great effort. And that's important for these kids to understand. Without Marcus and Tremont, it allowed us to grow some other guys. Without Fabian, you can see the work that we've done with J1. But, I go back to our culture. If you water a tree, think about watering a tree. You don't water the leaves, you water the roots. Culture is roots. That's how you grow your program. Have strong roots. And that's what culture is.
There you had it, Kelvin Sampson speaking on, as we lost Chris, but Kelvin Sampson speaking about the offense, speaking about culture. Aqib, Dayon, was there anything that stood out to you from Sampson's comments? Because I think for me right there at the very end, going back to their favorite saying, culture, but I think really right there, again, not to hammer the point, but 7-man rotation, and somehow they got it done, and how well they played offensively, it shows a lot. And like Chris said, I mean, honestly, it's astounding. It's astonishing what they've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, you could see from just dating back to the time when we had Galen Robinson, Corey Davis, all Rob Gray, like all those guys, and then also obviously the other guys that could rebound. That's like we saw the roots, we saw the trees being planted, the seeds being planted, and then like now the roots have been watered, and now you could see what it is like a tree in total. So like definitely what Coach Sampson said at the end that like stood out to me the most for sure.
I mean, just what stood out to me always, just the honesty with Coach Sampson. Serious. He's not going to sugarcoat anything. He's going to be honest. And when they move the basketball and play like that, then it's good. Just like it's shown, Coach always tell us like it is. So, I mean, that was what stuck out to me. Him, Coach, just being honest. And I think that bodes well into his players because he keeps it honest. He keeps it 100 with them. And that's part of that foundation, the roots that he talked about, that culture.
On that note, like I said, I was going to tease. I'll put it back up on the screen, but this is for you guys for a question around the panel. Who's the better opponent tomorrow for Houston? Would it be SMU or Memphis? And before we go around, I will give a score update. That game has gone into halftime. Memphis leads the Mustangs 32-26 in that game. And real quickly, when you look at the stats, that's interesting. So really the biggest impact for Memphis so far, at least scoring wise, Tyler Harris leads all scorers with 8 points. Actually, it tied with Alex Lomax, who both of them have 8 points. Meanwhile, for SMU, Kendrick Davis, second in leading and scoring, but it is Marcus Weathers, number 50 for the Mustangs, that leads them with 6. That's an interesting question. Obviously, Memphis really gave Houston problems in the regular season. I'll take it. That last game of the regular season, it's it was a beatdown, but obviously Houston had little to play for, and it was the fourth game in 8 days. And I hate to say like that because it sounds like an excuse, but it is just a fact. But obviously, when you look at that, you would say that from a higher chance to win standpoint, be SMU, especially how the Cougars were able to dominate them when they came and played at Fertitta Center. It seemed like the Mustangs are just too small, and they couldn't keep Josh Carlton, Fabian White off the boards at all. Now, obviously, of course, Fabian White, it seems like he's going to be a game time decision for whoever is in that championship game. But I'd imagine, what we saw with J1 Roberts, Reggie Chaney, they still have more than enough depth at that position to cause a lot of havoc for SMU and down low. You look at Memphis, Dayon, you mentioned how Kelvin Sampson raved about Jalen Duren in the post-game availability. He called him not only a first-round pick, but a draft lottery pick in the NBA draft. He said it wouldn't matter. Whatever team that Jalen Duren would be in the conference, he said that team would probably end up winning the American Athletic Conference Championship. So a lot of praise for Kelvin Sampson. Obviously, when you look at Memphis, they're athletic, they're big, they're physical, and they've given Houston a lot of problems. So obviously, of course, on paper, it looks like the matchup that you would want for Houston to have the best chance at win in the American Athletic Conference would be SMU. But what say y'all? I'll let Aqib, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like, I would much rather play SMU. I think we went 1-1 with them, and even the game that we lost, I think we could have came back and won it. But playing against Memphis, that just the matchup problems that Memphis as a unit presents is very difficult for Houston. I mean, they have size, they have athleticism, they have great guard play as well. Their guards are fast. Even though we have great perimeter defending in Kyler Edwards and in Jamal Shed, I still feel like if they can get switches on UH's bigs, even that can be a problem in it of itself. So like I'm just SMU definitely is a team that I'd much rather play than Memphis, and I think we have Chris back here.
Yeah, Chris joining us back on the unnamed hotline. Dayon, I'll let you go first. However, I will say this, Aqib, Dayon, not to stir the pot, but Memphis has head coach Penny Hardaway as well too.
Yeah. Good coach Penny Hardaway. Me and Aqib kind of, I don't want to call it an argument. We just have a conversation, a debate. Like that's what people do when they have different opinions. Nowadays, people often call it an argument or nothing. We just had different opinions and a conversation about it, in which I was right.
I'll give you that. No, I mean,
I was joking.
Yeah. I think if Chris doesn't know, me and Dayon were going back and forth about Penny Hardaway's, coaching, and I thought, in my opinion, and I thought he hadn't lived up to the expectations as a coach, just given I think they had the number 1 recruiting class, but he definitely has steered me wrong, and I'll definitely give him credit. Now, if we want to talk about Imani Bates not playing well, I don't know. He should have been a lot better. So,
Oh, that's two different things. One of the issues, Penny brought a lot of this on himself. When he took over at Memphis, he said, we want all the smoke. So he brought all that on, about national championship expectations. So he brought that on himself.
Yep.
And, the James Wiseman saga, he was part of that. So that didn't help.
Yep.
Imani Bates got to get healthy, and he wasn't ready for college basketball. He should have stayed homeschooled or whatever,
I agree.
High school year for his senior year. He should have done that. But Memphis is playing better. And one thing, in addition to being healthy, they play hard. They compete. So the athleticism is there. I think Penny has listened to Larry Brown's influence a little bit. That's helped also in the development of the players. So it's all a process. And coaching AAU ball is not like coaching Division I basketball. So Penny had to learn how to be a good head coach. So that's also part of it. There's a reason why the coaches picked Houston to win the conference championship this year, despite Memphis having better talent, which if that dude was still on here, I like him to think about, the coaches picked Houston to win the conference championship, despite all the talent Memphis had. So that says something about the two programs right there. But Penny and Kelvin Sampson, they get along. Okay? Trust me on that. They get along. Penny says a lot of stuff he says to pump up and get people hyped about, the action and get them involved in the game. But, Coach Sampson is all about the conference. He wants to see the teams succeed in the conference because it helps everybody. So, and that's one thing I think fans of teams in the conference, any conference, seem to forget. You want the teams in your conference to do well because it helps your team nationally when your team happens to beat those teams. Because, the haters talk about lack of quad one wins for Houston. Well, doesn't that say something about the American and the teams in the American as opposed to somebody like the Big 12 or the Big 10 who's filled with teams who are in the quad one? Just think if the American had half their conference, half their teams ranked in the top 40 in the net. Every team Houston played in conference could be a quad one win. But that's not the case. Then that's a problem with the conference. That's not Houston's problem. Narrative when you wanted to.
I don't understand when I see Kook fans and even guys that have a large following be happy when Memphis and SMU lose to bad teams. Like that doesn't, to me, that makes me feel like our conference is lesser than what it is. Now some might say like a team like Tulane having success in conference is good, but then you want to see the teams like Cincinnati, Memphis, SMU beat up on some of these bad teams, just so that it makes our conference look a lot better and helps UH's standings.
Exactly. That's the every fan of a team in the American or going forward in the Big 12 needs to look at how the conference members do non-conference and should want those teams to do well in non-conference because that helps the national exposure and attention and the net of your team once conference play starts. That's one issue where the Pac-12 has a problem. And the Pac-12 is what, guys? A supposedly Power 5 conference. But only 2 or 3 of their teams did well in non-conference. And that's why they only get, 2 or 3 teams talked about for spots in the NCAA tournament. You got to win non-conference games. You got to beat teams, quality teams, non-conference. It all adds up. It's all part of the body of work. So you want to see your fellow conference members doing well non-conference because it helps a rising tide floats all boats. And that's what fans seem to forget. It doesn't help that Central Florida struggles non-conference or ECU struggles non-conference or Tulane, Temple struggle non-conference. This is the American Athletic Conference. You want to see all those teams shine non-conference. That way, come conference time when Houston beats those teams, it means more.
Dayon, Chris, we kind of got segued there, but I will say in the original question in terms of matchup that Houston should want in the championship game, like I mentioned, Memphis currently leads SMU 32-26 at halftime. Aqib said that SMU is the matchup to be in terms of for the best chance for Houston to win. What say y'all?
I mean, I'll make it real quick. I agree with Aqib. I think SMU is the better matchup, especially if Fabian doesn't play because they're a smaller team. And we know what Memphis brings. I mean, their length, their athletic ability, their toughness, along with how well they're playing. I mean, they're playing probably as well as one of the best teams, just the way they're playing right now and throughout any conference and any team. And so I think the better matchup would be SMU as far as Houston goes, matching up with either one of those teams.
And Chris?
I agree with the guys. I think it's a better matchup for Houston is SMU. But if Fabian can't play, if Jamal Shed is sick and can't play or can't play effectively, it won't matter either way if it's Memphis or SMU. In terms of fan support, I like SMU to get there because maybe more folks would come from Dallas to Fort Worth for the game. and it'll possibly, if SMU wins today over Memphis, it should boost their chances of earning an at-large spot in the NCAA tournament. So that will give the conference 3 teams. And then, of course, if Fabian can't play and the Cougars aren't healthy and don't have 6-7 guys healthy, or 6 guys tomorrow, and SMU wins the tournament tomorrow, then they're got the automatic spot. So are 3 teams, period, for the conference. But matchup-wise, definitely SMU. Pride-wise, competition to smack talk-wise, Memphis. Because it clearly Memphis fans are butthurt and jealous of Houston's success. So, they're jealous. They're jealous of the success, the Final Four trip that Houston made last year, the conference championship that Houston has, the titles that Houston has. I think Fabian, what did he say, guys? He's got 7 rings, seven rings. Memphis has that NIT championship. Wave your flag about that. Be happy about that. While the Cougars are doing things that y'all haven't done. So, and then, by the way, Houston's going to what conference again, guys? What conference that Memphis is not going to? Oh, yeah, Big 12. So, wave your flag all about that stuff you want to do about Houston does not be quad 1 wins. Well, as Joe Mendez says, Big 12 equals Q1 wins. Thank you for your time. Peace.
Drops mic.
We'll leave it on that note. Oh, there we go. Wayne's back. A COVID Final Four, but we'll leave it on that note. Once again, the final score.
COVID NIT champs.
Chris, I'll let you have. Actually, I'll let all of y'all have a go at it once we circle around. But once again, final score: Houston defeats Tulane, 86-66 in the American Athletic Conference Semifinals. Kyler Edwards led all scorers with 20 points. Hit 6 3-point field goals to do it. They will advance to play the winner of SMU Memphis in the American Athletic Conference Championship game, which will be Sunday, which is tomorrow, obviously, of course, at 2:15 Central Time. Currently, the second half is underway, and Memphis still leads 34-29, so that should be a good ending to that game. But thank you guys again for hopping on. Thank you for all our viewers, all our listeners, however you may be listening, because this will also be available on Spotify and Apple Podcast after if you weren't able to tune in live. We appreciate the support. Once again, we like to remind you that this is the perfect time where we could, go around and give our Twitter plugs, our social media plugs, wherever that may be, presented by insert company name here. It's your chance. Aqib, since you're right next to me on my screen, I'll let you go first. Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, you can see it on my name on right here. It's at Aqib Gazi. You'll find me on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm mainly for now covering UFC and UH. So anything to do with that, you can find it on my socials.
Dayon, you can go next.
Same bottom left of the screen. Follow me at Dayon Dunlap. Also have a fashion page on Instagram. Is Dayon Closet. If you got prom coming up, weddings, anything like that, allow me to be your stylist and your style consultant, get you right. Because although I'm not dressed to the T right now, when I put it on, I'm very, very good at that. And so,
that's
shameless
fact.
plug.
That's
and
a fact.
If you do not know it, you just need to see some of the women's game on ESPN Plus, because he's not lying. He is not lying. Chris, your chance to plug, man. Where can people find you? And
Appreciate that, fellas, once again, for doing this. Glad to be part of Rage Coogs. On my website, thehr.com, HoustonRoundBarReview.com, Twitter, you see it there, the HR Review. And to that dude, mad, well, I'm media credentialed. I get in free. I ain't mad at nothing. Okay? I'm going to the Final Four. Period. Whoever's there. So, and you come on to a Houston Cougars post-game show to talk about Memphis. Think about that, my man. Okay? Peace.
While Memphis is playing, I might add. But anyway, so we'll leave it on that note. We'll be back tomorrow at the game's at 2:15, 25, 20, 30 minutes following the conclusion of that game. It might be a little trippy because we might be running into Selection Sunday at the same time. So it'll be an interesting time. Certainly, like we said, Houston will probably be somewhere 5 seed, potentially 4 seed, depending on how voters go. But it'll be exciting. Houston will try to win back-to-back American Athletic Conference Tournament Championship for the second straight year. They beat Cincinnati in the championship game a year ago, and they will face the winner of Memphis and SMU. Once again, Memphis still leading by 5:37-32 with about 17:38 left in that game. Aqib, Dayon, Chris, thank you for joining us. For all the viewers, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you tomorrow.